people often refer to Goya as the first modern artist, in the fact that he's dealing with not dealing with just religious imagery, mythological imagery, but he's dealing with sort of the psychology of people and how people relate to each other and how you think of yourself.
Primarily regarded as a court painter for the aristocracy, Francisco Goya created 500 oil paintings during his 82-year lifespan. In 1799, Goya published Los Caprichos, a series of 80 etchings. Spanish for the whims, the etchings are allegorical in nature.
Goya's history as an artist really started with his career pretty early on. He started as an apprentice to a painter named Jose Luzon when he was 13 years old. He was sort of destined to be an artist. That was his plan, that was his craft. He was a court painter to 3 different Spanish kings, and also at the same time criticizing the powers of the monarchy and of the church through these prints. It's satire, it's lampooning, it's buffoonery. They did produce 300 sets of these initially. Only 27 of them sold within a couple years, and then they were pulled from distribution. Some people speculate that he may have pulled them from distribution because of the forces of the Inquisition, which were still going on at this time. And he did give the plates to the king in exchange for a pension for his son. Goya is known as really a master of this particular technique. Etching is, in the simplest terms, a copper plate with a waxy ground, and you take something sharp and you sort of carve your image into it, put it in an acid bath, which etches the lines into the plate. You clean it off and then you print it. What's interesting about these works is that they're etching and also aquatint, and that's a particular importance because it allows Goya to show a sense of drama and theater because of the deep darks and lights he can get by the use of aquatint.
Goya used Los Caprichos to comment on the social and economic strains felt by the less than affluent. The then controversial images are still shocking today.
So early on, there's quite a few dealing with relationships, men and women, love and death. You're also dealing with the oppressed, and so he's showing pictures of people that are really having a difficult time and the downtrodden. Also rather dramatic and rather violent kind of imagery as well. So here's the owl, she's all tied up, she's being taken away. And so this idea of violence against women, I don't think Goya necessarily was a feminist necessarily, but he's sort of exposing the fact that these things are happening. There's a plate where there's a woman, she's older and she's looking at how pretty she looks in the mirror and the people behind her are laughing. So it's not only about vanity, but it's also about these people who are not being very nice. He's able to capture various subtleties of human behavior and subtleties of expression. And then there's also animal imagery. There's a donkey series where he's really making fun of the people who are doing certain professions, like doctors, for example, that act like they know everything. So he's really making fun of putting on airs. There's a plate with women sweeping away chickens with men's faces. So it's really kind of fun. And also, when you deal with men and women in relationships, there's a plate next to it that shows men behaving badly towards women. The plate, The Sleep of Reason, uses quite a bit of animal imagery. It uses the lynx, which is an all-seeing image. It uses bats, and it uses owls. We view owls as being sort of a wise image. At this time, owls are seen as an image of foolishness. And so this person who's asleep, the idea of foolish ideas that are going to occur to him while he's resting. But there's also another section that deals with the ghosts and goblins and witches and deal with really the darker side of humanity. Some of those goblins are thinly veiled representations of the clergy as well. He's also getting in some of his criticisms. And so these images do have sort of an emotional punch to them, and that's emphasized by the kind of technique that he was using as well.
Imitation being the highest form of flattery, right? We have a modern artist who took Goya's theme and ran with it. Can you talk to me about this piece?
This piece is a piece by an artist named Edward Hagedorn, and it's a much later, it's from the early 1900s, and it's called They Spruce Themselves Up. So this is a direct relationship to another piece that Goya has in his work. And it's actually really interesting that he's choosing this image in particular. People love this image for some reason, not really sure exactly why.
It's goofy, but it's also grotesque.
Right. Yeah. It has that kind of idea. And these are, of course, demons and goblins. And they're sort of helping each other look pretty, you know, having a little pedicure, which is really kind of funny at the same time. We think of ourselves as different, as higher, as better than these kinds of creatures. However, they're just as interested in how they look as we are. So therefore, we're not that much different. So he's dealing with themes of how people act with each other. He's dealing with themes of power structure and whether or not you're going to question that. He's dealing with themes of social inequity. He's dealing with other fantastical ideas and how people are dealing with how they see themselves in the world. And so, of course, these are universal concepts, and he's presenting this for a larger audience, which may create conflict, but at the same time potentially inspire change.